what do you know? She joins us here at the desk and Get Up. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
You've been on the ground in Chicago with the Bears, so tell us everything you learned this offseason about that Ben Johnson-Caleb Williams relationship.
So the word I would use to describe this offseason, from OTAs, even going back to rookie minicamp and seeing what we saw from Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, the whole offense is intense. The practices are intense. The vibe is intense. And it's all about correcting the small things on the fly, which Caleb Williams was pleading for last year. He said, coach me harder. Well, he got what he wished for. And I go back to a moment during mandatory minicamp. It stood out to me. It was a 7-on-7 period at the end of practice. And I thought Caleb Williams went the wrong place with the ball because he checked it down to the running back. And I asked Ben Johnson, who lit into him afterwards, what was that about? He's like, no, he was late. So correcting something that small, which seemed like just a minute thing in the moment, has become so routine for Caleb Williams, who's a really coachable player, Johnson, so far, about the relationship that he's building. And certainly, your play caller is going to be spending a lot of time with your quarterback, but there's a lot of intentionality with the specific one-on-one time that those two have together. And it's something that Ben Johnson said he learned from his time in Miami and then in Detroit, that you can correct, you can have evaluations within the quarterback room. And sometimes when it's around other people, people get defensive. They might get a little bit, I guess, pressed for, well, no, I meant to do it this way. You don't need to call me out on this. But he's been very intentional with the one-on-one meetings with Caleb Williams. He said that's where the truth comes out the most. And then also not being afraid to call him out in front of his peers. He thinks that that's what he needs in order to take that next step, to have the accountability that Caleb demands from the coaching staff, but the coaching staff also demands from the quarterback too.
All sounds really good. EJ, when you look at this second year for Caleb Williams, what are you watching for? What would constitute a successful season?
Well, exactly what Courtney is saying, and the reason Ben Johnson was brought to Chicago was to help develop Caleb Williams. Of course, he's the head coach and he's going to manage the entire team, but he's a play caller. He's somebody who's going to be with Caleb the entire time, and when you invest in a number 1 overall pick, you want him to work out. So the areas where I saw improvement for Caleb in this offseason is just managing the game, and what made Caleb great in college, guys, is the fact that he could ad-lib. He could run around, he could make that crazy throw and fit into a window. And you can't really do that in the NFL. And sometimes you get away with it and your receiver will make a 50-50 catch, but other times it hurts you and it causes you to lose games because the margin is so thin in the league. So the big area here for Caleb Williams, continue to be in communication with Ben Johnson, allow him to coach you. And I think, again, set some healthy parameters for Caleb Williams. Look, if you want to say, hey, Caleb, in this situation, in this play call, I just want you to hit that check down. Hey, Caleb, it's a 2-minute situation at the end of the game. We don't need to force it right here. We got a chance to get a field goal if we can get inside the 30 or the 25-yard line. So all those little small conversations are so important for a young quarterback. I went through it myself. And if you don't have that kind of support from the play caller and the head coach, it's really hard to play that position and progress like you want to.
Yeah, Graz, much to what Courtney have been saying, I work with Ben Johnson in Miami, and that's exactly who he is. He is a tough-minded, accountable coach who's very relatable to his players, and it's the attention to detail. And we can talk about Caleb Williams and all the talent he has. Fundamentally, 68 sacks, it's not sustainable. It's physics. You can't get hit, be sacked 68 times, and have a long career. And to me, what's really fascinating, guys, is from a scheme standpoint. Last year, Jared Goff, being coached by Ben Johnson, led the league, 226 snaps under center. Thanks, Humbo. Caleb Williams had 8 in college, 8. I did a lot of the Bear games last year for ESPN Radio. He does not play within structure. He doesn't play within time. He is a great athlete, EJ, as you mentioned. And what Courtney alluded to, that little vignette, I saw that every single day. And that's the difference between success in the NFL and failure. 1/10 of 1 second. And if he could play on time and then once in a while have these great plays out of structure, he has a chance to be really good. But if he doesn't, and if he doesn't cut down the sacks, nothing else we talk about matters, because it's going to be hard to have a sustainable career getting hit that many times.
Yeah, Mike, I'm watching football maturity. I know a lot of people around the league are as well, not just how you play on the field, but how you comport yourself on the sidelines, coming out of the huddle. I know that some coaches from the previous regime were not overly thrilled when Caleb Williams told our Seth Wickersham that he was watching film alone. They felt like there were different ways to handle that, maybe from an accountability standpoint. So what's the growth going to be year 1 to year 2 as a leader thrust into that position? Look, he deserves a lot of maybe some softness because of the mess that was last year, right? The different coaches, and him and Shane Waldron, the OC, did not have chemistry that you would think. So Ben Johnson's going to help him a lot, but he deserves some accountability too for the way things went down last year.
What are the expectations in Chicago? I mean, this is the place that's been looking for a quarterback since basically someone had the idea to put air in a pigskin. Like, what do they expect in the building? What do the fans expect? What's the feeling around that?
Well, they expect to contend. This is year 3 of this front office being employed in Chicago. They've got to start winning games. Another 5-win season is, so far out of everybody's mind, but is it 5 wins to 8 wins? Is that considered success? Because this is the NFC North. It's the most competitive division in football. So the thought of them going from 5 wins immediately into the playoffs, I don't know if that's realistic yet. You've got to crawl before you can walk. And that's where the Bears are looking at Caleb Williams and what he can do within this offense. They went out and got the head coach that's supposed to get the most out of not just everybody else, but specifically him. They've course corrected here in a big way. They went out and fixed the quarterback room infrastructure around him. They got him 2 more pass catching weapons in the draft. They've pushed their chips to the table on Caleb Williams, said it's your move now. But in terms of the expectations on that, I don't know if there's a number like a double-digit win season that feels super realistic right now. Based on, we've got to see it first from Caleb Williams in order to go there.
EJ, how quick do you think that turnaround can be?
Well, look, the turnaround can be quick, but I want to add to, the successful part. I think this is, she mentioned year 3 with the executives, but this is still year 2 and then year 1 with for Ben Johnson with Caleb Williams. So I do think you allow this to kind of play out at least for another season, get into Caleb Williams' 3rd year. And look, it's going to be really hard to contend. Detroit's really good. Green Bay, I think, is on the cusp of kind of going across that line as well. Minnesota, we'll see what they look like. But I'm excited for Caleb Williams. Everything she just said, I think, is exactly what you want for a quarterback to continue to grow. And I looked at this last year. In the back of him was Tyson Badgett, an undrafted free agent, solid quarterback, but you need a veteran in that room. I believe they brought in Case Keenum to help, again, continue with that development for Caleb Williams.
And we want to talk a little about the other quarterbacks in the division. And to do that, we have come up with a game.
The Bengals are going to the AFC Championship game because right here, number 91 is going to be taken care of at some point financially. Look, we know they could score. That's the easy part of the equation. But Trey Hendrickson and at some point Shamir Stewart, their first-round pick, will make a meaningful improvement to their pass rush, something they struggled with last year. New defensive coordinator Al Golden, I think, will do a good job. If they could close out games, this is as high-scoring of an offense as there is in the league.
Jeremy, obviously a lot of the story's been about those 2 guys not being signed. They did sign the receivers. What do you think about the Bengals?
The Bengals are trying to get a deal done with Trey Hendrickson. If they can get him there before training camp, then they really have something. Then Shamar Stewart will probably backfill, get his contract done at that point. Then they have 2 bookend edge rushers to get after it. The defense should be improved with new coordinator Al Golden.
EJ, Tannenbaum's got the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. You feeling it?
Yeah, I hear you, Mike T, but I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson want to have a word before you get to that point. But I like the chances for Joe Burrow